John Olasau.
I'm here.
John Olasau, the fantastic John Olasau. Where do we even begin? I will begin by saying, right off the bat as a disclaimer, obviously we've known each other for a very long time.
Indeed.
So I think that we'll probably maybe lose composure on some occasions because it's going to be difficult for us to take it seriously. But I think we'll get there. I think we've got most of it out. The other parts of the podcast that we can't show because of miscellaneous political views. But I thought either way, number two, I wanted to have Mr. Moldrich on the first episode because, like I said to him, he's super instrumental to us. With even some of his wheels are still here. But it was always going to happen. It was bound to happen because despite knowing you for forever and will know you forever, I guess your story is something that other people might not know about because you stay out of the radar, which is pretty fair to say. But we can cover that later, as long as it's not a B double driver past, right? Complete, and they blocked off this area to stop trucks going into the servo and smashing their car park. So now they just drive past here. But I don't think that'll happen. Yeah. But anyway, the point that I was getting at was your journey is pretty unique in the terms of GTR ownership, I think, where you've had the car for a long time. You've been able to enjoy the car in all of its states of values, financially speaking. And I'm sure we'll touch on it a little bit later, but you've been able to enjoy it as just a late 90s, early 2000s Japanese sports car before it became... It always was iconic, yes, but probably not as far of reach as it has now because it's gone to the likes of supercars now. People see them in the same
It's
light
ridiculous, yeah.
because of...
so ridiculous.
It's one of those things where it's a multi-generational hero car now. But your story is a little bit different. I think you've been able to enjoy the car more as cliche and almost cringe as it sounds, like a lifestyle. I guess you've enjoyed it. You quite literally fell in love with it. I was lucky enough to be there in that very moment when you realised what it was, and
that's right.
And that moment became literally your life to a degree, and a lot of your life has been centered around the car itself, the badge, and then now even having early iterations or whatever, this particular car has played a massive part in your life. So without me taking over and harping on too much, as I always do, why don't you tell me about it? Why don't you tell us about how it happened and I guess your side, your version of it and how it came to be?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me on.
Oh, that's my pleasure.
It's a first time for me for something like this. So
it's weird for everybody.
It's pretty exciting.
It's weird for me.
Yeah,
it's weird for me. But thanks for coming.
No, pleasure's all mine. Well, what can I say? It's how do we start this? I guess before I came to Australia.
Yeah.
I came to Australia in 2004 from Romania. Never I had Ferraris, die-cast sort of cars going up. My mum had cool turbo Audi. Couple of injectors.
Couple of diesel pumps. Carry on. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we had that sort of, standard sort of couple of cars here and there. And, Mum had some, a turbo Audi, like I said. And always sort of, I liked anything really that moved, trains, and I love locomotives and, cars to a degree. But I was never, from a young age, Formula One or anything like that, or really into cars until basically when I came to Australia. When I was, I don't know, probably about 11 or 12, something like that, someone gave me Fast and Furious. It was burnt on a CD. Watched that, thought it was absolutely fantastic, and that was just not long before I sort of came here. And all this stuff just looked absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, fast forward, come to Australia. I thought everything was like Hollywood, just fake stuff.
Yeah.
NOS and all that sort of stuff. And anyway, I remember vividly, came to Australia. We didn't have a car. We were walking to Enderville shops. And I'm walking with my mum. I'm like 13, 14 years old. Car comes down the road. It was a Lancer.
Mad.
It wasn't even an Evo.
It would have
was
been
the Lancer.
CE Lancer with an Evo body kit.
But it was turbo.
Oh, mad.
It was turbo.
Mad.
But I don't think it was an Evo from
Right.
memory.
Yeah, okay.
Anyways, it comes down and just, and I was just like, no way, that thing just absolutely, you know,
Fast and the Furious.
Fast and the Furious. I was like, there's no chance
Yeah.
that thing made that noise, and I was like, wow, this is absolutely crazy. Anyway, not long after that, Too Fast, Too Furious. Watched that. I thought it was absolutely amazing once again. Really liked this silver car from the movie.
Yeah.
And by that stage, I started going to school. And obviously that's where we met.
That's right.
You know, so then by that time I was like really into it, but I had no idea about it. It's like, yeah, no worries. This is mad.
I can't remember whose magazine it was.
It was, I think it was my magazine. I think it was, because when I saw that that Lancer go past, I'm like, I want to learn about turbos and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I remember it was my first ever car mag that I got, Fast Fours. And it was, I still have it. It was like how turbos work, like everything that you need to know, blah, blah, blah.
Perfect.
Anyway, I read that article like a million times. I couldn't get my head around what they mean by, you know, like a central shaft, inducer, this and that. But anyway, and in there was a little article about some sort of cruise, someone going, it was on like Chapel Street or something like that. And it was a white 34, it wasn't a GTR.
Yeah.
But I remember we were at school, and then I had the mag at school, and then I asked you, I'm like, you know, what car is this? You know, it was like, oh, yeah, Skyline, this and that. I'm like, okay, no worries, this and that. Not long ago after, I was like, what car is that in the movie? It was because it was the same one. Yeah, yeah. You know, this and that, exactly, this and that. And I remember, I was like, oh, you're never going to have one, this and that. They're 90 grand,
I was literally that guy. I was I was a hater from the teens, wasn't I? Because I remember I knew at that point, I knew very little. I was probably on a similar trajectory in my journey of learning about cars. I think maybe I'd had a little bit more exposure to import stuff when it was known as import stuff, because the only Western influence that we had with that stuff was import tuner culture, which is what, like a very, very primitive stage of what became, mind-blowing life that we've been very fortunate to live. Right time, right place, right everything.
Yeah, right place, definitely.
But I was very much like, there was no way, because it was over $100,000.
It was 04, 05. Like,
correct.
What are you going to do? The cars?
Well and truly over 100 grand. It was a couple of years old. It had just gone out of production.
Yeah.
So it was like, I was King Hater, and I was like, no chance. Are you going to have this car, bro? Like, it's never going to happen. Obviously, at that age, you don't know what inflation is and anything like that. You don't understand economics. But it just seems so far-fetched that in perspective to maybe people that are watching this now who, obviously weren't in that moment, perhaps, it almost felt as if it's the same sort of feeling that GT3 RSs have. So now everybody wants a GT3 RS. But they are incredibly unattainable because they're, 500 grand, 350 grand, 992, which is one that everybody wants, out of control prices. So it's not 100 grand, yes, but that's what that felt like in 2004, where if I had said to somebody now, or a kid says to another friend of mine, I'm going to have a GT3 RS one day, you're not going to believe it. And I guess that's kind of where, not to justify the hating, but that's what it felt. It was just unjust.
Well, no, it was absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And I remember at that time, I was like so set on getting the car. I'm like, I need this car, that I started writing a diary. It never followed through with it. It was like literally first page. It'll be somewhere on one of my hard drives. And I'm like, this is the date, blah, blah, blah. Told me I can never have one, this and that. But I'm going to get one day. And I remember saying, like, even if I don't have the money, I'm just going to get a loan and get one when I'm older.
Yeah.
Anyways, what happened after that? It was basically pretty much after that, internet.
Yeah.
Bit of LimeWire, bit of iMesh.
Yeah.
And then all the sort of, 1-2 minute clips on LimeWire, you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah. Could get a
And
virus,
it's just like
could get a
FC,
video.
RX-7, NSX, Supra, blah, 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 in the title. And then you would get it. And that's when I sort of got into all the sort of Japanese style Japanese car videos.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember the first one. It was the Valeside Supra and the McLaren.
Yeah.
And it was straight up the first time.
Start.
And
Just
here we
smash
go.
it.
And I was like, this is crazy. How's a McLaren F1 in the same next to a Supra?
Yeah.
And it's getting more or less chopped like
Crazy.
Do you know what I mean? To a degree.
And you, at one point in your journey, you had those wheels, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I had a on
Andrew's
32. Andrew's Racing
Fs, which are different to the Rs.
Mm.
And the Rs were on Dominic Toretto's
That's right.
Red FC in Fast and Furious.
That's
the first one.
yeah.
Really
FD.
heavily spoked ones. Which
FD.
FD. What did I say?
FC.
FD. Yeah. So I guess like it never would have at that point felt like it was attainable.
No, it was just like, man, it's a dream, you know.
Yeah.
Like you think of a dream, but yeah, it's just it's interesting how the universe works like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just heaps of videos, and then I sort of started getting obsessed with all that sort of stuff. You know, a couple of video games, Need for Speed Underground. How can we not talk about Need for Speed Underground?
Yeah.
Wow, what a crazy thing that was. I remember I went to a mate's house who showed me the first time I saw Need for Speed Underground, not two, but the first one, and I didn't know what drifting was.
Yeah.
And I saw their drift, and I'm like, what is this? You know, getting pointers and that. And then later on in the videos, here we are.
Yeah. Hot version.
Complete. Kazama.
And that's I'd have had discussions with Simon about his car, because obviously his has got not the full Kazama kit, but the front end and side skirts are all Kazama. And it's crazy to think that like when we were there, that car was there.
Yeah.
That same car was there. And then like that kit maybe I've got just like, you know, some distorted biased perception of it, but like I think it's a pretty aggressive front bar, very similar to a 34.
It's amazing.
But that was ingrained, because it was such a it was literally a pivotal moment.
It's a lot of presence where cars tried to, you know, a lot of cars, especially during those times, trying to get a bit more streamlined, a bit more sort of nice, aerodynamically and smooth lines, whereas that was just like, huge. And that was like massive wheel poke, huge wheel specs before we even could fathom the idea of wheel specs. And it's wild to think that 20, you know, fast forward 20 years later, like I said before, right place, right time. Yeah.
And you know, I genuinely say this, and I share this with you all the time. I send you photos all the time. It's just the shop, and I can't believe that this is the reality of where we've ended up.
Yeah.
It's like that. Look at us, man.
The universe.
You know, but it's what it is. It's what it feels like. It feels like it's life has been tremendously fair, and we've been favoured to be able to enjoy the things that you have. And I think you've expressed before, obviously not on camera, but you've expressed before that you're almost glad that your goals were set at an attainable level.
Yeah, well,
imagine you're a Ferrari guy.
It ended up being attainable in the end, but who knows otherwise.
So I think the big thing, obviously, is your story as to how you actually got there.
Yeah.
So the first car you had was a 32, which that in itself, the car itself had a tremendous amount of history.
Well, yeah, look, I actually had the MX-6, if you remember.
Correct.
And then that was, how can we forget? Sounded amazing.
Yeah.
Had that for a little bit, and then that's when obviously got a license.
Yeah.
Go to the mountains.
Yeah.
A bit of toge, heaps of obviously from all the Japanese videos. We started doing a bit of toge racing.
Yeah.
And sort of started timing ourselves and things like that through the mountains, and that was fun. But you know, it was wrong wheel drive and still a lot of fun and fantastic. I think to learn on, and it was very fast.
It was quick for what it was.
It was extremely fast for what it was.
Incredibly underrated platform, and I think that had that been rear-wheel drive, that would be another one of those.
It would be a legendary.
Yeah.
People just don't. A lot of people don't know about it.
They don't know about him. And I was talking to Daniel Aldrich last time. Shout out JD and Parts Ripper. I was talking to him about the popularity of Mazdas, weirdly in that sort of mid 2000s, because I had a Mazda, you had a Mazda, a couple of other friends had Mazdas, my sister had a Mazda. Weird, maybe they just dipped at the right time and they were attainable.
Yeah,
but they were an excellent car. I had an MX-6 Turbo, and you had the V6.
The V6. Yeah, so I've had that for a little while, and that was really my first car that I started. You know, get a bit of suspension, get a bit of clutch, get a bit of intake, get a bit of exhaust, and all these sort of things. And then after a little while, after I got the after I got the clutch, started breaking gearboxes.
That's right.
And that's when it started, did one gearbox, got it fixed.
Yeah.
Did another gearbox by snapping second again.
Yeah.
Learned that I can't do that. It just started costing me money not to upgrade the car, but
just to maintain it.
To maintain the car.
But you gave it a hard time.
I did, yeah.
It had a lot of Ks.
It did, yeah. And it still does have a lot of Ks.
Yeah, it still does have a lot. So it should, I mean, I guess that's one of those things that we kind of gloss over, I guess, in occasion, is that we obviously, we talk about it because we're aware of it, but you still have the car.
Mm.
It still exists. And
I will get to it at some point.
Yeah, which is amazing because I don't know of many people that still do have their first car.
A lot of sentimental value.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit of a hoarder as well. Like
yeah.
I don't know, I'm attached to things.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But that comes with the passion.
Mm.
That's totally normal, I think. I think people, I think I'm similar in a way, but you know me, I've turned, I did it the other way where I wanted to experience as many cars.
Yeah, that's right.
S13, S14, FC, the GD MX6 Turbo, and a bunch of BMWs, and I wanted to just experience all of them, which I think in its own respect is a different type of car ownership, but I think there's a lot to be said, and I think it's also far more uncommon for people to be able to accommodate having their things and keeping their things. So yeah, I think that's pretty special. I'm sure you will get back to it, but after a while, breaking gearboxes.
It started costing money, and I'm like, man, if I'm paying this much money for just breaking gear, like spending money on the car now, I might as well spend some money and try and buy a GTR.
Yeah.
So fantastic idea. No worries. That's another whole saga in its own right because I can't. It's a terrible thing, but long story short, I'm not sure if you remember, but I got the car. I imported myself from Japan, from HKS in Kyushu.
Yeah.
Some bloke owned it at HKS in Kyushu and had like 10 grand worth of team suspension and everything. It was really nice. That's the one with the Andrews Racing wheels. And essentially, I bought the car, got it inspected, fantastic. 93, silver as well. Phenomenal, clean car, and I think it took nearly a year.
Yeah,
to
it was
get
a long
here.
process.
They literally forgot to put it on the boat.
Yeah,
because at the same time, from the same people, my other friend bought a GTR as well.
Yeah, right.
And the gunmetal grey one that Omar had.
Oh, right. Same time.
Same time, same place,
wow.
same people, same.
Wow.
So they're like, no worries, the car's coming. And then they just kept telling me, yep, the car's coming, it's on the boat, it's going to be here in March. March comes, it's his car.
Unbelievable.
I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
My car's literally just still sitting in the yard. They put the wrong car on the container.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so that was a whole absolute saga. And as a, 19? As a 19-year-old, to deal with all the customs and the, quarantine and, oh, mate, it was a year, and I was just like wasting time with like a sometimes broken MX6, sometimes not, trying to make some money. And anyways, it finally comes. Yeah. And it was absolutely, they say sort of never meet your heroes, but here we are. Yeah. GTR. Yeah. No number plates, taken from the quarantine people, 200 k's an hour on the M1.
I was blessed to be there. I was
That's right.
One of the first people there.
That's right. And dropped you back off at your house. Yeah. And then I went to work. Yeah. Standard. I worked quite a lot.
Yeah. You did. I think that you never. I think one of the admirable things that I'm going to say on camera, because I'll never say it off camera, is that you worked towards that goal with such unwavering commitment that you never even made a fuss about it.
Yeah.
Because whatever the goal was, which was to get that car, or even once you got that car, it was never going to be negotiable. It was never going to be something you were wavering from, and it was literally your purpose.
Yeah.
So I think it's like, that's why I said, I knew that I needed to have you on, because I knew that people can resonate with this. Like some people do, some people don't. I think some people fall in love with cars by accident. Some people fall in love with cars through, they inherit it. Some people just, see a nice car one day and go, I'd like to have that. But other people like yourself, they get fixated on it in like an obsessive way.
Yeah.
And then, like, even leading up to now, this is what, has been central to your life. It's central to your identity.
Yeah.
And I think that people always got too much of one thing is a bad thing. But I think that if that one thing is making you do a lot of good things, then I don't think it matters, because you worked non-stop. You worked non-stop until you had it. And you did everything, whether or not they were illegal or not, you did everything that you could do to get it to happen. It wasn't dealing drugs, people grow up. But it was, you did everything you could. You did everything you could. And I remember sitting on the sidelines and having not known what the process was with importing a car or anything. How was I meant to know it was going to, like, how, people tell you ETAs and stuff like that, but let's remind the audience that's not here that this was very early for people to privately import cars.
Well, it was 2009.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been doing it for a bit, but
of course,
still 2009.
But as an individual and to go through the drama and to be able to resolve quarantine and contamination and blah, 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 it was still a foreign thing. Now I think it's great that people have accessibility to importers now, and there's a lot of intra-country companies that deal with importing and whatever. So, you look around here and, there's one car in this shop right now that was delivered, like it was an Australian delivered car.
Yeah.
We've got it outside of the shop. We've got a chaser there. We've got your car. You've got these two Crowns. They're all from Japan. That chaser outside, which we can't see, is from Japan. And the Roadster is from Japan.
Yeah.
Like, these things are in an abundance now. They're everywhere. And it's like you just so happen to live. I'm sure the people that lived when Beethoven was around were like, this is the most gangster thing ever.
Yeah.
But
that's some mad violins that I'm...
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You'd have to go to like Austria to get a violin. But in saying that, I think that we just got right place, right time thing. But we're not that old, but we were in a time where it was emerging, and as was everything else, as was the internet and the birth of social media. But I think once you had the 32, you immediately started what I think defines your unique GTR ownership experience amongst, I think, what, for the most part, people experience GTRs. I'm not to say that there isn't other GTR owners like yourself, maybe not to the extent of publications in Japan, perhaps, but you began to enjoy the car and you started using it at the track.
Well, yeah, I had it for a little while. Yeah. Fun time, but it was a high-powered vehicle when I was on my Ps.
Yeah.
And here and there had a bit of trouble, obviously, being in a GTR when you're on your Ps.
You get hung at dawn.
Yeah, it was.
You get hung at dawn in 2025 for driving a GTR.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but even then it was problematic.
And then one day I remember, you remember the 32's got like this pretty standard 32 would have like a little pellet in one of the vacuum lines that go to the actuator to,
like S14s and stuff.
So marked with yellow because
just
that's where it is.
Know where it is.
So you know where it is. You can take it out
if you want to service it.
So here we go. So I serviced it.
You serviced the restrictor.
I serviced the restrictor,
you just
and
happened to forget to put it back in.
And we went out. Yeah, went out, and it was on Princess Highway, standard.
Yeah.
But it was during the day.
Yeah.
Complete.
Yeah.
No one there during the day. It was the middle of the day, and went out. And obviously, I know how fast the car is, and it wasn't that fast. Like, it was pretty much a standard sort of engine GTR.
Yeah.
With the standard stuff, exhaust, bolt-ons, cool.
Yeah.
And I'll go third, absolutely mash the pedal, look down at the boost gauge to see, and it's going more than what it normally is. And I was like, okay, that's quick. And then straight away I looked at the dash. Oh, it's going pretty fast. Looking on the road, there he is, in the bush, just like that, just sitting there, smashed on the brakes, and then that's where it all ended in a way, I guess. It completely ended. Went in front of the car, completely cut in the middle of Princess Highway, go to the side. It was one of the blokes from Highway Patrol to show. I joked around with him. I'm like, oh, can I get your autograph after this and that? And he goes, yeah, mate, you get my autograph on the bottom of a ticket. So I copped everything, high-powered vehicle, 45Ks over, points on points on points on.
Loves it.
It was absolutely terrible, and then lost my license for 12 months.
It threw the book at you, yeah.
And that's the first time I lost my license. And just for a split second, just because I was looking down my boost gauge, because I've done that, I just, here we are.
Yeah.
So then I've got no license, and it was a pretty terrible time because I only had the car for a few months.
Yeah.
And now I don't have, I can't drive a car. I've got the brand new GTR that I just got that I can't drive, and I've got no license. And that's how it sort of started. The end was the beginning.
Yeah.
Of having to get my then girlfriend drive me to the track. So she would drive me to Winton because that's the only place that I could drive the car.
Yeah.
Got a CAMS license.
Yeah.
Got everything, and then went to the track and absolutely loved it. Obviously, it's like your dream comes true.
Yeah.
You're there. You're absolutely loving it on like the ugliest Nankang NS2Rs of all time because it had RE01Rs, but they wouldn't pass. Roadworthy and things like that.
Yeah.
So I had to get some tyres quickly in the meantime to go to roadworthy, and they're just stuck on the NS2Rs, and it was whatever, but it was fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't that fast, but I think it was like
mechanical was everything.
It was like a minute 45 or something like that around there. But that's how it all started. So she would drive me to the track. I'd be racing there. Did that a few times. Clutch started going. I went and got it tuned. That's when I got a Power FC, like everyone does. Get a Power FC, get a bunch of power, 275 kilowatts at the rears, still on the standard turbos and everything.
Huge power back then.
It was huge power back in the day. Talking about 98.
Yeah.
After that, I left with 275 kilowatts. But as soon as I went on the road and there was wind, slipping clutch. And then that started. I went to the track actually with the slipping clutch. And it would go first, second, third. As soon as it would come up on 6,000, I'd let go to 75%. It'd go past 7.5, then mash it again, and you go again because where the peak torque was, it couldn't hold. And it was a lot of fun, and it was fantastic. And eventually, finally, after a few track days, a bunch more work, and I started doing things to the car as well. But one night I finally got my license back. And we're driving home one night, and I was very tired because working hospitality, so it's like midnight. I'm at the lights somewhere. It was my only car, so I'm driving around everywhere. And I'm at the lights. It's a red light, and then it goes green, and I'm so tired. I just realized, oh yeah, it's green. I'll go. And all of a sudden, just completely, absolutely destroyed the car. Some lady ran a red light in a massive four-wheel drive, clipped the whole front end of the car off. Lucky I was completely tired. And I didn't see the green light straight away, or maybe I would have seen the other car coming at an extremely rapid pace. Who knows? But nonetheless, I went forward and it went straight through the front of the car. And if it was one more meter, I would have been, at least paralyzed. I would assume. I don't know, completely driver's door. So and that was unbelievable for me because I just had a taste of it. At the track, whilst I had no license. Just got my car back for literally a few weeks after not having it for a year to get it, and then getting it and then not having a license. And now it's completely written off in the middle of an intersection on Princess Highway once again. And,
it was a dark time.
It was a dark time. And I'm pretty sure
I was there. First on site.
For some reason, you were driving past at the same time.
I was nearby. I think perhaps maybe it would have even been, maybe I was on the way to you. Like we were going to just kick back or something.
I don't know.
But I remember vividly seeing the car scattered across the intersection. And like it's ingrained in my head. I remember it was ingrained in my head.
Terrible.
And I remember just thinking like, nobody, I guess, outside of your then girlfriend, now wife, I don't think anybody really understood what your journey had been like because I'd been so lucky to be there. From the inception of the obsession of the badge itself to the acquisition of the car, enjoyment of the car, And then I think I had my S14 at the time. We'd
Yeah.
even done a couple of cheeky pulls.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
weren't too far away in terms of power before you
No.
tuned it.
No.
And we had so many nice experiences. And then coming to see this was seeing like a family dog or a sibling or your favorite uncle, and it was just scattered all over the intersection. And I knew it even on the first frame of it that the car was gone.
Yeah.
There was no chance it was coming back.
People would have just seen just another log with a fade wearing Adidas, staring at a broken Japanese car.
Correct.
Stacked, you know. They have no idea what happened.
Yeah, it was cliche. It was. You would just be like, oh yeah, whatever. You know, you wouldn't have thought that it was somebody's lifelong dream.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, that's not that unique in the sense that a lot of people can get to a point where the crescendo of their happiness is they get a car. It doesn't have to be a GTR, it can be anything.
Mm.
And then these things get, you know, written off. And to a lot of people, you know, that are outside of the space that we're in might look at it and go, oh, he was probably hooting.
Yeah.
He's probably doing something wrong.
Yeah. Exactly.
But little do they know, right?
Well, exactly right. And it was at that point that I thought, you know, if it's that easy for me to die for absolutely no reason at all,
yeah,
I'm gonna buy. With this, I thought about it like this is, you know, obviously the next day, like I'm gonna buy 34.
Yeah.
If it's that easy for me to die for absolutely no reason, I'm just gonna buy 34 now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's nothing, you know. I didn't foresee that they would go up in value so full on.
Yeah.
You know, and waited a bit, got insurance. You know, got some money from the insurance, and this was now 2011.
Yeah.
It was 2011, and got the insurance money. Didn't have much money at all. All I could muster up was, you know, 30 something grand, and you know, looking online, and here we go. It's, you know, it's a 34 GTR, V-spec, silver, same thing, you know, KR4, and
which also is the hero car.
It's
Too Fast, Too Furious, right? That was Sonic Silver.
It was it just happened to be there, and it was well priced for the time. Like, it was, you know, 48, 46. It was like 48K. I know, it sounds ridiculous now.
Isn't it? Isn't it the most ridiculous sounding price?
Yeah, it is, yeah. And then it went down to 46, and then went down to 45, and then I'm pretty sure it stayed at 45. And I was like, man, I've got to do something about this.
Yeah.
You know? And I just kept lowballing the guy. It's just like, because I didn't have money. That's all the money I had. I had my insurance money and some more money. So,
yeah.
You know, I'm like 35, every day. Even went to Adelaide and didn't accept, you know, I had to go a second time to get the car.
Yeah.
You know? Anyways, in the end, like a month or so had passed, you know, 35 GTR came out in 07, 08.
Right, yeah.
It appeared here in 09. It was now 2011. The new model's out. 34s are coming down in price.
Yeah.
What's the guy going to do?
Yeah.
You know, that particular gentleman was it was like his second car, and he had to get rid of it. He had another kid on the way.
Yeah.
He wasn't even driving the cars to go to work because it was so close to him. You know, he was like riding a bike or something, like a motorbike.
Yeah.
And his missus just absolutely, you got to get rid of this car. You got to get rid of this car. And then, you know, here I am.
Lowballing.
35, and then
I'll fix that in a moment.
more lines for me.
Well, you just keep talking, and it won't even switch to me. So tell your story. Carry on.
It basically went there. He declined it, of course he did, because, you know, why would you go that low? But after a particular period of time, it just couldn't handle it anymore. So basically went there, and then he wouldn't sort of he wouldn't budge off 40 grand. It's just like 40 grand, and I didn't have that much money. Yeah. And in the end, a mate of mine lent me some money so I can have another few $1,000s, like three grand. I got another grand from here.
Yeah.
it was all my money.
You did all in.
And
You
I'm
went
like,
all in.
my friend, I'd love to buy the car,
Yeah.
but honestly, this is all I have.
Yeah.
Then it was literally 39.5
Yeah.
grand that I had.
Yeah.
That all my money.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't do it. I was sitting in his living room. He just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
He goes, no, that's 40 grand is it. I'm like, what can I do? And I just had a new iPhone at the time.
Yeah.
And I overheard him saying that he needs a new phone.
Unbelievable.
So I'm like, I can't do nothing. I've got no more money in my account. I've got nothing. Like, a few $100 basically to drive back if that would be the case.
Yeah.
And I just said, you know what? Delete everything on my phone, completely wiped the phone. It was a pretty new phone. I'm like, you just need to get a charger. Here's an iPhone. I forgot what it was, a 4.3. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
And just gave him the iPhone.
Yeah.
And that was 40 grand, you know.
Crazy.
It was
such a good story.
It was you know, I drove back 9 hours, 10 hours from Adelaide without a phone.
Yeah.
Just couldn't believe really that I'm just taking home a 34 GTR.
Yeah.
And at that time it was a really good price as well.
It's crazy to
Even
think
then.
like the whole drive, no phone. It would have been, it would almost, even to this day, and I'm sure it was even for you in that moment as well, like people wouldn't give up their phone to buy a car. In another state, you've got no other option. This is the only thing you can do.
Yeah.
I don't think people would go, delete all, here's my phone.
Yeah.
But I guess that kind of goes to the reason, again, without harping on about it too much, is that I wanted to have your story.
It couldn't,
because it's like, you
it
can't
couldn't
do
happen
any
any
more.
other way. There was no,
Yeah,
you know,
there's
the
no
guy
other way.
was really,
Stubborn
that's
as
the
anything.
way that it was. And
Must have been Romanian, the guy, no?
yeah. But yeah, drove it home. It was, the 5th of November, 2011.
Yeah.
Out of home and, you know, completely elated.
Yeah.
You know, just phenomenal. You know, and it looked pretty much the same as it does now. Same wheels. I didn't even change the wheels, you know. Yeah. It's a V-spec, so it's got the front diffuser and, you know, things like that. But I think that lasted about 2 weeks before it blew up.
That's going to be the best snippet of all time.
So
it blew up.
GTR life struck me quite early.
Almost immediately
as it does.
Yeah.
And now, after all my unfortunate events that had occurred to me, I've now have a fantastic, great looking, you know, paperweight in a garage with, you know, what's going on, you know?
Yeah.
What's that? Oh, is that my twin plate clutch? No.
Yeah. That's
it's something else.
Twin plate bearings.
Yeah, twin plate bearings, yes. And then a whole other saga, which honestly makes me feel I'm disgusted to discuss it.
Yeah.
I just it's such a dark time for me because then I still had to work a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and I couldn't get to work. And then shout out to literally everyone all my friends, my missus, my mum, everyone took me to work every day. Lucky, I work locally, but it was like, you know, a solid few months before I even, you know, took it somewhere.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the idea was that I could save some money while they got the car and obviously doing all the work. And won't name names, but the shop took the car and, you know, talk the talk, and they walked the walk as well, actually. Yeah. You know, they had a car that competed at a World Time Attack, and it was, you know, quick, fast, and I was like, that's me. Like, that's what I want to do one day, you know. Yeah. And you know, literally, it's at the machinist. It's there. It's this. So I'm waiting on these parts, waiting on those parts, and I think it was about 10 months. Yeah. Another 10 months on top of it. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous. By this time, it was like, you know, nearly 2013. Yeah. Like, you know, I don't have a car, and eventually I got it. I remember poetically for Christmas. Yeah. Got it for Christmas. HKS 2530s, -5s, equivalent, that I had bought to put on the 32 that I never did.
That's right. Yeah.
Because how that ended, and got everything done, and it was absolutely phenomenal. And I was like, run in tune, couldn't go over 5,000 RPM, and literally the first night I'm literally just driving along in the mountains, but just driving along, just being gentle with the car and everything like that. For real.
No cap.
No cap.
No cap for the young audience. That was no cap. He wasn't even being sus.
I wasn't.
You weren't being sus.
I wasn't. It was just literally driving normally, and then all of a sudden, just it completely exploded again. Completely exploded on the 23rd of December. And I was like,
oh, the disaster.
What do we do here? Like, what do we do here? It's let's put the car on a tow truck. They opened up the shop for me on Christmas Eve. They went there to see what's going on, because obviously they knew it was an absolute drama. This guy's,
of course,
we've been stuffing him around for 10 months. Finally gets the car, it just blows up at 3,000 RPM, doing nothing. And
what was the extent of the damage?
They well, they wouldn't. It was completely seized. That's what I knew.
Wow, Jesus. Okay.
They open up the covers, and the pulley bolt completely snapped off. So it's just a matter of someone just one too many ugga-duggas and not actually torquing anything up. It was a brand new bolt, in their defense, but ugga-dugga in and snapped, and then
do you think
pistons, valves.
Do you think that was obviously it's not acceptable, because it resulted in the absolute,
and it was everything was
decimation.
new, right? It was like CP pistons and rods and everything, like Tomei cams. This was I had really put in all the money for the 10 months. I saved everything, and I went as hard as I could, to make something of the unfortunate situation of me blowing up my car that I just bought.
Make lemonade,
and then 10 months later it just blows up again. So in it goes again. Again, this time for nearly the same amount of time. It was absolutely ridiculous. Then it wasn't built again. It's such an unfortunate, long story, but it wasn't right once again.
I think but I think that this is kind of where your journey has been. It has been up and down so much, but I also feel like, without getting too spiritual about it or whatever, whichever way you want to look at it, I think that every time something happened, it happened and it opened the door for something else to happen. And I think that the one great Curtis Jackson once said, it wouldn't be so good if it wasn't for rain. And if you don't go through that pain, if you don't go through those darker times, then I don't think that the cars can sustain that sentimental value. And I think that a lot of people kind of get to a point where it's like, man, this thing's just costing me money, and it's not doing anything for me. And you'd already had that problem with your MX6 to start with, kept blowing up gearboxes, and you're like, forget about it. And then with the GTR, you went through the whole saga, the 32, you went through all of that saga to get the car, and then you got the car, and then it ended out of your control. Any other person would have walked away from it and just gone, you know what, I'm going to just buy something that's reliable.
Everyone was tough. Imagine having to work in hospitality, and then every single day from every single table, because you're mates with everyone, they come in and it's, how's the car? Where's the car going? This and that. Oh, you're wasting your money. Oh, you're wasting your money. Oh, you're losing all your money, your whole life, this and that. Stood on the car. But it's like really like that for years. It's and I don't know, I needed to have this. It was, as cliche as it sounds, it was like a drug. Like I needed this. I became obsessed with it, Best motoring, hot version, learnt, more or less learnt Japanese just from obsessing over all these Japanese car videos and the whole story of the car and things like that. And I needed to have it. Honeymoons in Japan,
Honeymoons in Japan.
Anyways, they finally gave it back to me. You would idle the car and there would be a puddle of oil within 2 minutes at the exhaust pipe. That's apparently normal, you know. And I'm
It's
sitting
totally-
there.
what do you mean?
You know,
That's normal.
I'm 22, 23.
Yeah.
I don't know that much about, engine building and things like that, but I know enough that,
That's not normal.
like I told the guy, I'm like, mate, you do a lap of the Nürburgring, you won't have this much blow-by coming out my,
100%.
with this much oil coming out
Yeah.
on the ground in the car park while I'm idling. Like,
Yeah.
what's happening here,
Yeah.
Absolutely nowhere.
It was a
And
two-stroke at that point.
yeah, it was just Miami.
Complete mini rock.
Completely mini rock, yeah.
Yeah.
And that didn't last long. Literally, I would check the oil level would go down. I would check it, and every couple of weeks, like it was that bad.
Yeah.
And they just, they took accountability for it, but it just took so long to get things fixed.
Yeah.
Then they fixed it. Heaps of oil going on, and then that lasted another few months as well, and just it exploded again. So by this time, you'd think you learn your lesson,
You'd think you would just go, you know what?
Maybe I'll buy an LS1.
Maybe I just buy an LS1
Yeah.
and just make very similar power on 5 pounds and just not have a breathing head.
No chance.
Yeah. Look, I mean, what do I know? I don't even have one of those.
Yeah.
So I can't talk about that. I've got an asthmatic 1.6 litre.
And then, then it got fixed again. And this time it was a bit faster, but it was still many months.
Yeah.
Many months. As the great Curtis Jackson once said.
Shout out Curtis Jackson.
Shout out, CJ.
Yeah. So it's blown up again.
It's absolutely blown up again, and this time they fixed it again. This time it seemed to be okay. What was it? The third or fourth time that it's been rebuilt.
Well, at least
with some new parts, some old parts.
They figured it out in the end, I guess.
And whatnot, and now it was more or less reliable to some degree, enough that I could then dip back and try and start racing the car again.
Yeah.
Because that was the idea,
Of course.
The idea was it was going to turn into some crazy power tune, style 34 GTR, crazy rear wing and sequential and things like that. And that's what would have happened to this car if it hadn't gone up in price so much. And, it's just, it is a lot of money as well to do all this. And then obviously
do you think
and this and that.
Do you think that you... How do you feel towards? I think we've had this discussion personally, off the record. But tell me about how you feel about the car now versus when it wasn't what it's worth now. When it was even at some points at the height of cost, this would have been almost close to 10 times more than what you paid for it. In the right spec.
Look, it's honestly for me. It clearly doesn't matter. I've had it for 13 years. To me, it's more of a negative thing. I don't. Sadly, the parts have gone up in price.
Yeah.
The Nismo Dash that I paid $700 for, is like $3,000, $3.5K. MFDs are like $15,000. Like, insurance goes up, everything goes up. You go to the track, it's like, what can you do? If you've been there before. It'd be very unfortunate, 30, 40 grand, or even, 10 grand, you get a shell or something. Like it'll be, normal price.
Correct.
But not anymore.
Yeah.
So then, you've got to be a little bit considerate of that as well. And for me, it's a little bit of a burden that it's got up in value so much, because it doesn't matter for me whether it's 800 grand or 20 grand, we're never going to get rid of it.
Is there a number?
I don't think there would be, it's beyond like, I can replace it,
Yeah.
You can replace it, 150, 200 grand, you get another GTR, 250 for a mad one or something like that, with all the fruit. Yeah. But, after 4 or 5 engines, and, later on with the, the blood, sweat and tears that have gone into it, it's something that you can't sort of put a price on. It's, like you said earlier, you know, like family, like a
Yeah.
dog or like a family member. It's just, you know, that's why I've still got the MX6. There's
Yeah.
a connection there, let
Yeah.
alone this.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
This has
there's
been, yeah, this has been with you for a long time.
there's no chance. You know, if someone gave me 400 grand, I would, you know, if I was to take the 400 grand, I would still have to spend more than half of that to get a GTR that's to my liking, and then in the end, it wouldn't be mine.
It won't be the same.
It won't be, you know,
Yeah.
could be whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just, you know, I'm a sort of, you know, like a typical Japanese person in that sense.
Yeah.
You know, you spend your whole life with, you know, the one thing, or trying to sort of sharpen the blade till you're 80, you know, make tea till you're 80. Like, it's, you know,
So
whatever you're interested in, you just want to perfect, and, you know,
It's kumi
that's, you know,
in what it is. Yeah.
enjoy it as much as you can.
Do you think the car exposing you to Japanese culture do you think that actually that's probably the other way to phrase it? Do you think that the car itself aligned with whatever it was that it aligned with internally with you because you resonate so much with Japanese culture and the way that they do things? Because obviously people have now met your fantastic character. They're not quite sure how funny you are yet because we haven't gotten stuck in quite so far. But you know, like they're unaware.
They're unaware.
They're unaware.
How would they know?
How would that? They're not going to know. They're not going to know. But you know, the question is, like, do you think that it's more that you know, that the Japanese culture aligns with the way that you like to do things? Because you're very ceremonious is what I call you, because
Ceremonious is one way of putting it. Yeah.
Because you enjoy.
I enjoy process.
You enjoy procedure, definitely. And do you think that the Japanese culture aligns with that? And maybe that's what this is, an accumulation of generations of racing pedigree until they got it this good. And so I think
guess
that
so, you know.
maybe that would align.
If you know, if you think about it that way, 100%, you know.
Yeah.
It's
100%.
100%. It wouldn't, you know, it is a case that, like, the mark, you know, evolves, and it's, you know, well, especially from the 32.
Yeah.
It's just trying and trying and trying, and every time it was, you know, it was absolutely amazing result.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have to go through the standard things everyone knows.
Yeah, yeah.
Bathurst, this and that, and whatever.
But I think that also maybe the other thing too is that you have kept this car very much aligned with the original concept. Because I think what is a vogue now is that you can go to the extent of, I guess, resto modding a lot of cars. And I feel like Japanese cars are no different, where we're seeing Japanese cars are now being engineered or innovated in another way where, you know, yes, okay, this might have a Haltech in it, and we'll get into that in some time. But say, for example, you got the Power FC in the 32, but you got the Power FC because it was grainy VHS videos that you saw them in.
Got the Power FC in the 34?
Yeah. So then
that's what I had in 34, yeah.
So then you kind of stayed aligned to what the car itself is. I think, you know, people that may or may not know my car, the car is also very much built in a way that aligns with what the idea and the concept of the car is, and it's just enhanced. It's not completely taken away, and you know, obviously there is different realms of GTRs. You know, we talk about this quite a bit off the camera, and that, you know, there is different types of GTRs. We have mutual friends that have, you know, 1600 horsepower. Samsonus. Got to wait for your oil pressure before you can put it in first, you know, and there is extremes of every type of car.
And there's an appeal to that as well.
Of course,
you know, I would love to have one of those.
Yeah,
you know? It's just that, you know, when you're 16 and you're fixated, you know, when first time in your life, you know, I'm sure everyone remembers the first time when they saw the Mines video.
Yeah,
that's really the first time
seen it.
you lost your virginity was when you.
I've never seen the Mines GTR video, man. I quite literally haven't
I'll
seen
definitely show you.
I would love it if you would show me, because I've never seen it before. Yeah.
And the first time you see that, obviously, it's just literally my whole life after that, I was just trying to recreate that. I mean, trying to recreate that. Like, absolute, you know, tremendous amounts of power. Only realizing years and years later that it was, you know, I mean, it's fast, you know, it's extreme, it's very fast. It's the fastest thing ever.
Correct. I think Donald Trump would like a Mines GTR.
100%.
You know what I mean? He would put a tariff on it, but he would like it.
He would.
Yeah.
He would put a tariff on it, but it's worth the tariff.
100%.
It's
Yeah.
100% worth the tariff. And
Yeah.
you know, if you think about it, even these days, this is like a little digression, but
We're here for the digression.
we're here for the digressions. 57.7 at Tsukuba Circuit, Tarzan Yamada drove that car
It's a very fast
in
car.
2005.
Yeah.
So
It's blistering.
what is that? 20 years ago.
Yeah.
57.7. You know, I mean, you get a 35 GTR. Mine's 35
Yeah,
GTR. Doesn't
yeah.
go that fast.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're talking, you know, RE01Rs.
Yeah.
I'm
And that
pretty
was
sure
even,
that's what they had. And it's extremely vicious. It was one of these sort of potent combination of, like I said, I didn't say before, but I meant to say, realize after, it is fast, but 411s,
Yeah.
you know, 411s and other ratios that they played with as well, that was just absolutely spectacular sort of fit, especially for short tracks
Yeah.
like that, or Sandown.
Yeah.
The car is so rapid at Sandown,
Yeah.
not so rapid at, you know, Phillip Island or
Yeah. Yeah. We've got
Sydney Motorsport Park.
a bit more length. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, not with this power level anyway. It's
Yeah.
just a normal sort of 90s, so early 2000s
GTR recipe
GTR recipe of
with a couple of cheeky,
couple of, you know,
411s,
exactly right.
-5s.
You know,
Do you feel that this combination is uncommon? Your combination?
I think I've seen it a little bit more in sort of the last 5-6 years,
Okay.
where people
Have
you
gone
know
back
would go the 411.
Yep.
Not so many people do. I don't think. I mean, it's, you know, you've got such an expensive gearbox, and you know you want to sort of, especially if you know paid so much money for the car, you want to sort of keep. You can't sort of butcher it.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, it serves a purpose to me, because you know I was really sort of serious on starting to race this and be a flat out time attack car, which sort of never ended up sort of being. But it's at this sort of middle point where it's still a street car.
Yeah.
I've got Apple CarPlay.
Yeah.
You know, aircon and wipers. I've got wipers.
Defining feature is wipers. That's where, yeah. Don't worry about rotational idle. Don't worry about it being an inch off the floor. But but look, it got in here. It got in here, and it's very hard to get in here. It's very hard to get
absolutely
in.
fine.
Anything in here that's slow, it's very difficult. Once the car's on this, it's fine, but getting it into this particular spot is difficult. I think that the car, it is definitely, I mean, you know, I think that street car is very broadly up for discussion, very grey area for what street car is. You know, you got guys, it's got to shoot. If it's got to shoot, it's, in my opinion, it's not a street car. And that might be up for contention. Yeah, but I can do Macca's. Of course you can, but you're doing it with a glide and a parachute. It is, that could be the standardized, the Macca's drive-through could be the standardized street car test if you want to. But if we're being honest with ourselves, you can take your son to school and...
Well, actually, I've got the baby seat in the back. I don't.
No, not now.
But normally I do.
He normally does. He's not. It's no cap.
No cap.
No cap. Yeah, no cap. Baby seat in the back is a regular occurrence. And you've got a bolt-in cage that you use to meet scrutineering standards.
Yeah.
Now, I know that you're probably not as big of an ego inflator as I might be, but you've used this car. So I'm going to try and squeeze the blood out of the rock. But how many times have you painted the front bar?
No. A couple of times.
A couple of times. How many splitters have you had? They can't see the...
Two splitters really.
Yeah.
But it's been
repaired.
It's been repaired so many times.
Yeah.
And I've got a brand new one actually at home that I'm going to fit soon. But it's just, you know, so many ripple strips and it's just being peppered. But I sort of enjoy it.
You can't. It's probably hard to see in the shop, but even the and I know you're a big. I think you like potato. I think you're a big potato guy.
Yeah.
And big potato guy. This guy.
I'm not gonna change it.
But you know what I mean? That's it's right there. It's it's rock chipped for rock chips.
That tells the story.
It tells the story.
Yeah,
you know, like it has been used for what it has to be used for. It still presents incredibly well. Shout out JJ at Afanes. Done a tremendous job at and this, you know, what the coating. How old's the coating? How old has
the coating is 5 6, 7, 8 years old.
8 years old, and it's
8
unbelievable.
8 years old, and you actually, it's still,
Unbelievable.
it's still
Yeah.
fantastic. And it's seen, in 2015, I did the SEU Championship.
Yeah.
And, finally, after like the, 10th engine.
Yeah.
And, long story short, it was actually so fast that I ended up winning in my class, and I came third overall in the whole championship.
Yeah.
Which is, it was, obviously, shout out to the Tesla ETS.
Yeah.
That's the real shout out.
That's the real shout out.
It's put some good tires on it, and if you sort of know
Understand.
how to, without sounding weird, right, just to know how to drive the car
The way it wants to be driven.
the way it wants to be driven, because it is, in fact, you've got to drive it in a different way.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the sort of the whole philosophy of GTR.
But what's weird about that? What's weird about saying that when the reality is that a 911 needs to be driven a particular way?
Well, I guess so, yeah.
A MR2 needs to be driven a particular way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Every Evos have to be driven a particular way.
Yeah.
For more or less, what would be the difference between every car if every car had to be driven the same way? And I think that's maybe, I'm not going to go into EVs, mate, EVs. I'm not going into that. I'm not going into EVs because that's not a discussion for this program. But the ultimate thing is that, every car has its own expression of how it likes to be driven. So I don't think it's weird at all, man. I think that I think that you've perhaps you've actually put the energy into understanding the car for what it is, and I don't think that's weird at all. I think that what is weird is a surgeon not knowing how to use his tools. Like you are doing a thing, you do it wholeheartedly because that's the idea of it. There's no point of then using the car for anything other than its true purpose. That's what I feel, and I'm sure you feel the same way. And it just because that's the way we feel about it doesn't mean that that's the way you have to do it. But I think that what they wanted this car to be is for it to be driven and for it to be enjoyed and for it to be put to its purpose.
And it was, more or less, it's still, well, actually not as of the last couple of years, but it was pretty much for this whole time the only car that I've ever owned.
Yeah.
Like that I own that I has as a daily.
Yeah.
So I would daily it, then you do Phillip Island, then you do Sandown, then you do Winton.
Yeah.
And just sort of was really enjoying after a while, after it started getting more sunnier days.
Yeah.
Enjoying sort of living that life of working on it, racing it, and when it does work, it is absolutely amazing. That's the thing. Sometimes you can't have. With GTRs as well, with anything really high performance that's, you've really modified and everything like that, you've got to take, the good with the bad.
Of course.
And
5 engines.
5 engines, And honestly, if it wasn't for those, which I've skipped the last couple, or the last engine, there's one gentleman that I met that at hospitality, when I was working in hospitality, that he's an engine builder. It basically had enough of hearing me, and all my unfortunate stories. And then one day, and again, the universe, I sort of believe in that stuff. You put the energy out, it comes back. And I've been very fortunate in my life through unfortunate things to have someone like himself go, you know what, bring it to me.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll do it. I won't charge you except for the parts, right? It was like some sort of sponsorship.
Yeah.
But you've got to pull it out. You've got to strip it and bring it to me, just long block. And then you've got to put it back together and put it back in. And if it wasn't for that and that moment, I wouldn't have known half of what I now know. And then all the sort of blood, sweat and tears of getting that done and, swapping out this and that. Basically everything that I know on how to work on cars is because of this journey that this has taken me. And
it's a silver lining.
And it is. And I know it's, there's so much unfortunate events that have occurred, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
it wouldn't have happened the way it has.
What
you know?
a beautiful crescendo to the story. But that's what it is. It's. I think that a lot of people have that journey where a lot of people, tinker with things because they're like, oh, I learned in my garage. This is the first car I got, and I started doing this, and I started. For example, I cracked a manifold on my MX-6 turbo, and then I figured out that you very quickly can snap studs. And so then I went on the journey of pulling studs out of blocks or heads, and people learn that way. But I think that there's no wrong way to learn, and I think that like these journeys that are like yours, where you get put in a position where you're put in a pressured situation, and you need to learn it. You need to figure it out, and then you connect with this car again in another dimension. I guess that kind of segues into the other things that I wanted to touch on as well, because part of your story, like you just said, with the recognition of that person who helped you out with that engine. You've been fortunate to be part of the very same publications that you idolize, and you learnt a lot about this car through, right? Because again, the universe kind of changed certain things for you and put you in the right position in front of the certain type of people that then actually got you published. But I don't want to steal your thunder and tell a story about that. But you've been featured in not millions, but like a few, right? A few meaningful publications.
It's
tell us about that.
A lot of once again the universe.
Yeah.
I've got so much hot version at home and best motoring at home, and went to Japan to meet Tsuchiya at Suzuka Circuit and all this sort of stuff, and waited for him for hours and got stuff signed, and of all this stuff amongst everything I've got so many GTR magazines.
Yeah.
They have a publication in Japan called GTR magazine.
Yeah.
And I've got pretty much all of them. And it's like, it's fantastic for me. It's like going through ancient scriptures, you're translating. I've used a phone, translate, go through and, look at, how things were back then and what parts were on offer and how much they cost and what they did and, and really there's another story that leads to this, but
we got time for it, man. It's all good.
I was working one night at the restaurant, and I see this 31 Skyline GTSR. Like, it looks like a GTSR. Fantastic. And it's I'm just staring at it. It's absolutely amazing. Bloke comes out. What a fantastic car, And then he goes, "Oh, you got the 34? We saw it in the car park, And we got to chatting and things like that. And I'm like, "Hey, mate, I'm Johnny, So I'm Chris." And I'm like, "Chris?" Like, so Johnny. It just so happened that at a brief period in time where I was briefly in Australia just for a few months in 2001, I was in the same grade with this guy.
Wow.
And I only sort of, known him for a couple of months back then. We were like 10 years, 10, 11.
Yeah.
And anyways, we're like, "Chris, man, like, wow, Fountain Gate Primary School,
Wow.
Just briefly.
Yeah.
And then I went back to Romania.
Yeah.
But anyways, exchange Facebook, obviously standard Facebook thing, like, don't really talk.
Back when it was Facebook.
Back when it was Facebook.
Back when it was shout out Zuckerberg.
And
that's going to take us to the top of the algorithm. It's going to be like the most viewed video, like Joe Rogan underneath, right? It's going to be mad. Do you know what I mean?
And
shot Zuckerberg.
Yeah. Don't talk to him. And then one day he reaches out and he goes, "Hey, man, I've got a mate that's that he met when he was a child, that lives in Germany now, but they met when they were little as well."
Yeah.
For a brief amount of time.
Right.
From my understanding. And he goes, "Oh, my mate's coming, he's from Germany, he's a photographer, he wants to write about a book about GTRs." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, no worries. I thought it was some sort of uni project, this and that." He goes, "I told him that I've got a mate that's got a 34, take some photos." I'm like, "Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Take some photos of the 34. Mad.
Yeah. Aber natürlich.
Natürlich. And then time comes, and I finally realised that this gentleman, Alexander Quirtium, that wrote a book about GTRs for its 50th anniversary, called GTR: The Journey. Knew Chris, so obviously he came down to Melbourne, say good day, but also to shoot the Gibson Motorsport 32 GTR, and then they looked at the Mines car from V-Spec, and then they looked at a couple of things around everywhere around the world, including Australia.
Yeah.
And then obviously he saw his mate Chris and some random guy with a 34 GTR. And then took the photos, and then I realized that night when he was telling me, I've got NDA and this and that, and then it's 50 years anniversary with Nissan, and Nissan sort of granted him, I gave him all the keys and do this and that and the other, and I was like, oh, this is absolutely phenomenal.
This is proper serious.
This book comes out. It's absolutely beautiful, by the way. It's it's really
still available for sale.
I believe so. Yeah, 100%. It would be.
I'm sure people can have a look.
GTR: The Journey. It's the coffee table book, amazing quality photos and cool stories from everyone. And this guy got all sort of really instrumental people that were involved with GTR. Kazunori Yamauchi, Smokey Nagata, people from Nismo, people from just everywhere.
I mean, look, and the biggest standout name is the one true,
not
the one and only John
Olasau.
But
you got Jim Richards, and you got this and that, and then it's John Olasau.
Yeah.
So he I'm very grateful for him, because he sort of liked my story a little bit so much, and you could see how passionate I was. To the extent that you sort of started learning Japanese and doing this and that, that he decided to put me into this book as well. So I was like, absolutely phenomenal. Got the book. I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely elated.
Yeah.
And from that, a few months later, GTR magazine caught wind of the book. Then they wanted to feature some people from the book, and there was Jim Richards, and there was this and that, and then
John Olasau.
The guys they asked him, like, you want to feature 6 different people from your book.
Wow.
And then the guy's like, this guy. And
Unbelievable.
I remember I got the email one day, and it was a gentleman from Kotsu Times, and I thought it was spam. I thought,
that's what I was going to say.
Someone's taking the piss. Someone's emailed me, and
can't be real.
And it was from GTR magazine, and I just, can you imagine how ridiculous that would be?
Of course.
And I've always wanted somehow, some way, just to find my car in all the GTR magazines.
Yeah, somehow.
Because they have this section where there's like R's owners, and they got all the happy family and this and that.
Yeah.
And they got the VIN number of the car. And
Yeah.
This and that, and the little spotlight on them, and I'm like,
It
trying to find my car.
Nice?
It'll be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I still haven't found it. Who knows? It might be in there, but I still haven't found it because there's a lot of magazines and there's a lot of time spent to translate and read this. Yeah. But if anyone knows, BNR 30, 40, 50, 30, 40, 30, 40, 50, I think that's my VIN number. No,
your VIN number?
Yeah.
Oh, your VIN number to find it. You
Yeah.
don't, well, I guess no one's scanned it yet, but I'm sure you could use AI to do it.
Yeah, probably. If it's all,
Yeah.
in there. 2 years ago, there wasn't any, so here we are.
Correct.
Yeah, we can look into that as well.
Yeah.
And then here we are, with everyone else, it was like Jim Richards, race car driver, or this and that, and it's just like John Olasau, R34 GTR V-Spec owner. But here I am.
Yeah, but
after an interview, photos taken.
Yeah.
And then at one point in my library, there it is. Like, the universe has given me this gift, which for me was absolutely, it's still
surreal.
now is mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's surreal.
You're in GTR magazine.
Yeah.
And you got your family in there. I've got my kids in there as well, and it's all. And they couldn't believe that there's this crazy guy that speaks Japanese and to a degree, and races the car and works on the car, and is
But I think that's what I was saying before. It's you are the iconic GTR owner that sits outside the realm of the domestic owners. and I think we've, I think I briefly touched on it in the last episode that we did with Moldrich, was that, you look at their obsession with Western culture, like so much of even their automotive brands, European culture, Western culture plays such a massive thing. Like Arnie doing the whatever the noodle thing is.
Yeah.
Doing the ads for the noodles, because it makes a difference. And all sorts of celebrities, A and B grade celebrities throughout the 90s and 2000s, doing ads in Japan because it was just so relative to what they were. And they go crazy, KFC on Christmas Day, So like
KFC.
it's, I think that you just kind of fit this. I did proclaim in the previous episode that you are somewhat of a micro celebrity in that thing, because I don't know which other way to personify it.
No,
It's in that particular space, and you mentioned before off camera, which again I think that you're retaining that that humbleness, which is another defining character of you, which is good. That you were getting friendship requests and stuff on Facebook for a little while as well, and they probably still happen on occasion from random Japanese people.
It was pretty crazy, because the Japanese really appreciate it when you've been there, you speak a couple of words and they're really sort of appreciative.
Of course, yeah.
Of man, this guy's putting in some effort. Or
correct.
And
yeah.
then
but it would blow me away if I had Japanese visitors here. I would lose my mind.
Yeah, exactly right.
Like we are fortunate, shameless plug, that we're doing some work into Japan pretty frequently now, and even that is what is that about, man? Like I think that to digress for a moment, I think that we're very, very lucky. We're very, very lucky that we've had this journey, and we sit inside. We've been very good. We're lifelong friends. We're actually, it's probably time in the podcast to break the news that we are family, not by blood, but through marriage, we're family. Yeah, he's that type of bloke. But we're family, so we're destined to spend.
Stop it, stepbrother.
Stop it, stepbrother. You're podcasting me. But yeah, sorry, yeah. Sorry, brother-in-law. I'm stuck. But that's the thing, I think we were very, very fortunate, like I've said a few times in this episode, that like we're fortunate to be this. But this being the reality is surreal. And I think that you have been lucky enough to take it a step further and be published in those things. But like you said, going back to, when you are in Japan and you have your sticker and your sticker's got poorly translated Japanese on it, and you say to them, I'll probably butcher the language when I say it, and they're like, oh my God. For them, a shop owner appreciating their car is viewed differently in their society, in their car subculture. It's viewed differently because it's not the same as someone from whatever random car shop here liking your car. Like that's just tuner liking your car. It's not that big of a deal really. Whereas over there, it's like, wow, I'm being recognized by a shop owner, a foreign shop owner. So I think that makes a big difference. So I think that to add dimension to what that means for you to be featured in those publications is massive, because it's big for you, it's huge for them. And I think that mutually everybody involved in that, and that's why they probably did. Okay, it was just a GTR only, not Jim Richards or whatever. But
they love that I had 45 kilos
Correct.
worth of.
Correct.
They had it in there, like all the GR magazines. I think this
bowling
guy's got 45 kilos of GR magazines.
Yeah.
All of them, and
yeah, which aren't really commercially available outside of Japan.
Well, yeah, you have to find them on Yahoo auctions if you want. But as with everything, once again, very sadly, so expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, you pay $20-$30 for one or whatever, but if you want to buy a collection or something like that, it's like $3,000. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Even books that I bought when I was 16, 17.
Yeah.
It's like, you want the digital, $16. You want a hard copy, it's $400. Like,
yeah. But you own DVDs and VHSs.
VHSs, yeah.
You own VHSs of the sales.
VHSs. Yeah, the
sales
tape. Dealer tape, yeah.
Dealer tape, yeah.
And I got a VHS player.
Yeah, for that, right? For that,
because
I think you were on the hunt for that when you got that tape, and that's a different degree of ownership. That's that really almost religious connection with a car and a lifestyle.
You can't. It's too many things on top of each other that just add to the
sentiment.
weight of what it means to me.
Yeah.
Like we went. Quick digression. We went to World Time Attack. T-shirts, teams,
Yeah.
jumpers, trailers,
Yeah.
money, tuning, engine, get it ready, drive there, get car from work, take it there, entry cost, practice days, go there.
Accommodation,
And the
everything.
first time I went there with my newest, brand new engine.
Yeah.
It was fine on Wednesday,
Yep.
and then Thursday morning for practice, I put my helmet on,
Yep.
turn the car on, let's go. Clack, 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 clack. Running, just oil pressure 0.
So bad.
After all of that, we were nearly about to change bearings at the track at midnight.
Yeah.
With friends, with all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And all that sort of blood, sweat, and tears that has gone into that. The next day having at that point in time a broken 34 GTR, but then I'm doing an interview with my broken 34 GTR, and it was hot version. Or no, it was video option. Video option. It was video option.
And you did the interview mostly in.
It was just a very small thing. The other one was they didn't actually air everything, but it was pretty much all in Japanese.
Yeah.
It was the year after. I went in 2018, and the car was fine.
Yeah.
And ever since 2018, the car hasn't skipped a beat. Knock on multiple layers of wood.
Whichever type wood. Viewers at home, please knock.
Knock on wood.
Whatever wood you have, please knock.
Knock on it now.
Yeah, knock on it now. And he'll start a GoFundMe for the next one.
And it's been absolutely fantastic. But then in 2018, it was it was hot version.
Yeah. With
the car at World Time Attack, and these sort of events enabled normal people everywhere people that you want to experience something grand, something international. You got Tsuchiya there, you got Arito there, you got Tarzan there, you got everyone there, and then it's just you living out this childhood dream.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Down the pit lane, I've got a photo with Tsuchiya staring at the car, and I'm just like, man, I'm standing there waiting to get out, and Tsushiya's looking at me just there, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. And then you get the next version, the next hot version DVD that I've got, and then you're on it. Ichigeki Motorsport 34 GTR, flying past.
Motorsport.
Shout out Ichigeki.
Yeah.
Haven't been updated that page in many years.
You got
shout out to
Ichigeki. Flashing.
Which means once again, not to be some sort of a hero, but it's like one strike, one kill, or one shot. Yeah. Not because anything, but because, and another long story which I won't get into, but the cooler pipes have been the bane of my existence.
Oh my God, cooler pipes.
Cooler pipes. For whatever reason, cooler pipes,
aren't they?
And cracked rotors from that, blown turbos from that, so many things from that.
Yeah.
And what was I getting at this for?
Ichigeki, one shot.
Ichigeki. I had one shot to do it.
Yeah.
And at one time when it was actually my fault when I blew up the engine.
Yeah.
One workshop told me to remove the fender cover.
Yeah.
It's okay without it, this and that. The oil cooler's there. Done. Then the last race, this is again very, very poetic. The last round of the championship, then the last lap, I had gone out and it was cooler pipes all day until the very last session that I had. And I went there and there was no cooler pipes, and I said, yep, we're on.
Yeah.
And I went there and it all held together and it was all good. And because of that, and I didn't get a session in all day, and I knew I had to put down a good time, I was just focused on just putting one lap down, because it was just like warm-up lap, cooler pipe, warm-up lap, cooler pipe. One day I'll make a compilation. It'll be absolutely hilarious of just me absolutely swearing. Every time there's a cooler pipe. Everywhere. At Winton, at Sandown, everywhere.
Yeah, you've been very lucky to blow cooler pipes everywhere.
Every day I'm cooler pipe. Yeah.
Every day you're cooler piping.
Yeah.
You're basically cooler pipe king.
And it was V8 Supercars was on like a week or so before or something like that. So much rubber on the ground.
Yeah.
All cooler got full of rubber on the back. Engine overheated. Bearings.
I can't wait
and that was
to ultra zoom that bearings, man.
Yeah. and it was absolute bearings. But because of that lap where I literally blew up, that was the lap that won me the championship.
Unbelievable,
It
man.
was absolutely unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
And why did I get to?
Did you get it? Because you had one shot.
Because I had one shot.
Yeah.
I had one shot, so I'm like, my friend in Japan actually came up with the name. You know, I think Ichigeki Motorsports would be good. And I was like, that's absolutely fantastic.
That's exactly
why
what we
not? And that's why it's named that. But yeah, we had that, and Ichigeki Motorsports, hot version, dream come true.
Yeah.
You know, you're racing with your idols, and because of that, all this layering of all these experiences, good and bad, you know, and all this. So you look back on it, and it was fantastic. It was still okay because it sort of made me who I am in the sense of I learned everything about the car, about the engines, about all this stuff, and that's why, you know, you give me 500 grand. Those are memories that I can still, you know, that I always cherish. But you know, it's here.
You can't replace it.
It's here, and you know, it's still with me, and it'll still continue. You know, I got 8009s at home. I still haven't put on, and I want to go back to Sandown. I want to break a minute 20, which would be very fast for, you know, 25-year-old car. You don't have any aero. It's got 400 kilowatts. It's still twin turbo. Like, it's not, you know, absolute. It's fast, but it's not, you know, complete Lebanese weapon.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, a lot of that is because the car will be exceptionally fast for what it is, which holds a higher value than it being fast by today's standards. Because you've done it, you know, poetically your way. You've done this car your way. You've enjoyed this car your way, and you've been able to really embrace it. Like I've you know, it goes without saying, we've known each other for a long time, and you're rigid on how you plan on keeping this car, and there's not going to be. I think that you won't waver from it just because of resources. You won't waver from it just because of whatever. There is very much nothing that will come between you and this car and the way that you want to enjoy it. And I think that that's very, very special, because we see in the line of work that we do, we see a lot of cars built in certain ways, and we see things done in certain ways, and we, you know, we appreciate everything for what it is, but it's very special when somebody has a journey as long as yours, as fortunate as yours, as decorated and as colorful as yours, and as recognized as yours in a different way. I think that I know this sounds like such a bizarre thing to say, but it's the modern time. I mean, you would have under 1,000 followers on Instagram, I'd imagine, maybe.
I really haven't. For sure.
It doesn't even matter.
I haven't posted it. I used to love Instagram and post a lot on Instagram, and I might get back because I really like taking photos, but then life got in the way.
FOTOCHOK.
Yeah, I think it's a CK.
Is it a C? No, I think it's no C.
I think it's no C. Yeah, I can't remember.
Because you are a photo.
It's not that many followers.
A few
hundred followers.
Yeah.
But I haven't used it since like 2021, 22, something like that.
Yeah.
But I really do enjoy taking photos, and that's what I used to just take.
It's not really your measure, is it?
I've just sort of dropped off of social media. Yeah.
And I think that like that's also pretty important too, right? I think that that's what it is pure. I think you are definitively, you know, you are pure in your enjoyment. You're not a purist. To many lengths. I think you appreciate many things. You appreciate different achievements. I mean, you like to inform me as soon as something in Sydney does a ridiculous number, and you try and convince me that it resembles a GTR. But you know, there's you know, there's some pretty wild things being achieved with this platform. You know, and I think we have this I don't know, almost like people like myself, yourself, and a lot of people that relate to this podcast, we're kind of stuck in an era of cars such as these, where now modern day cars are, you know, stock for stock, naturally, are outperforming these 25-year-old Japanese cars.
100%.
Hand over fist. You know, like a new G80 Series M3 is an unbelievable performance car, and it's a rear-wheel drive. And
don't even talking about just a Hyundai N.
Hyundai N.
With tyres and brakes.
Yeah, literally anything now. Or even Megane RS faster than a McLaren F1 around speed. But, you know, these things, you know, modern cars have a different appeal. And we're not going to go into modern cars versus old cars, but I feel like we're kind of stuck in this little pocket, this little window where we live within the confines of what I believe to be the peak of Japan. And I feel like, the peak of Japanese automotive engineering, we had the likes of, right up until 2002, let's call it, heavy hitters, Supras, NSXRs, FDRX7s, Evos, WRXs, GTRs.
It's the golden age.
Measure. It's the golden age.
It won't happen again.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah.
And that's 100% for sure will not happen
again.
Everything is now just well, it will turn into being just batteries.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of batteries.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think batteries are quite as impressive. But I always laugh at when I look back at some of the best motoring episodes that I watch in hindsight. And obviously you see them through the lens of the time. But we were obsessing as teenagers over cars that would do like a 15.5 or a 13.4 at best.
100%.
13.4? Are you kidding me? I mean, we were looking at turn the NOS down a millisecond and you'll run 9s. You know what I mean? Like
but 13.4 and it will turn, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
That was just one,
Yeah, it was one time. But I think that we were very fortunate. And I think that it would be good to re-celebrate those those shows, because there is nothing like Best Motoring. Like, there is no other platform of any automotive journalism that
with all the production values and with all the all the funding and everything that's available online today. Even to this day, I don't think you can get. I mean, maybe some videos, but maybe in like one of those car, whatever they're called, where they do a drag race, car wow drag race, But the insurance, the amount, no other TV show will you have, not journos. You've got full-fledged active race car drivers that are in an F50. They're they're in a 911. They're in a Lambo. They're in a GTR. They're in a McLaren F1, and they're all battling at the same time to the limit. To the absolute limit. Abunai. Abunai. That is exactly what I was about to say. It is literally Abunai. Like, it was millimeter close racing. It's like some street reviews in moccasins, but the rest was in helmets. It doesn't happen.
And they were just absolutely on. Nobody sent anything ever harder. Nothing has ever been sent. Chris Harris, Jeremy Clarkson. I can't remember the other bloke, but he does very good videos. Man, I wish I could remember his name. Now I look like an idiot. But none of these journos will ever come close to sending anything as hard as Gunsan sent.
Gunsan is...
Everything got sent to a degree.
Doesn't matter what it was.
It didn't matter. It could be a front-wheel drive. It could be it was literally previous.
It was a Cressy, just like absolutely
sending it. Moccasins going off.
It doesn't matter what it is,
It didn't matter. With the Ray-Bans on, tucked shirt, moccasins, and you would be absolutely destroyed by this bloke. Anybody would get destroyed by this bloke. And he's calmly
phenomenal.
And there's nothing like that. Any of the presenters, aside from maybe Hattori, who missed every gear, every race.
Mr. Shifter.
Mr. Shifter. But he should have just stuck to autos. But they did. We jokingly say they definitely have a bias towards Japanese cars when there is comparisons, but they did not have biases towards certain makes. Like, obviously there was being that they were active race car drivers, and being that they were very, in their own respect, decorated race car drivers. Some were better than others, without a doubt. But, you would see sometimes where, for the likes of Tsuchiya or Gunsan, for example, if Gunsan ever drove an NSX, you knew it was all over.
It was Gunsan.
If it was Tsuchiya driving a GTR, though, was also almost guaranteed victory. There was other drivers that were good, but I mean, they were all, like I said, all in GT300, GT500. They were active race car drivers, and they were competitive. You couldn't get them together. Now you couldn't even get active Formula One car drivers to go that hard, to be able to review that hard. There was such a incredibly talented, broad range of skill sets and to bring the industry itself. They would pick apart cars, and every time they would come out with a series, that's why there were so many model updates throughout the lifespans of these cars. I mean, 33 GTRs, you're the absolute GTR wizard. How many series were GTR? 3? 33 GTRs, 3 series, 1, 2, and 3, right? So they revised that platform 3 times in its lifespan over the course of, you're going to have to hit me because I don't know, what, 90?
Small updates, 95 to 98.
98. So there you go. Within that time frame, 3 revisions. And they were revisions in its definitive sense. When you watch those breakdowns on those shows where they get the people on and they have a talk to them and they explain what these minor differences are, that you would think that's pointless. But it would translate to seconds on the racetrack. It would translate to people watching that show and going, I'll get a Series 2. Even though the Series 1 GTR lost to an FD, I would still get a Series 2 because they've updated this or they've updated that or they've got
small little things, but nothing like Evo and Subaru.
Correct.
You know,
or even, I mean, RX-7s,
RX-7s
Series 6, 7, 8, same thing. Do you know what I mean? They updated these things frequently and then they got the best out of those cars every time.
They had to.
Every single time they updated platforms, it was because of the pressure that this show put on.
Yeah.
Because what are you going to do? They're going to put a cone there and you have to stop there. Whose car's going to stop before anybody else? And it was just absolutely, even the GTR demolished everything.
Yeah.
And it was such a substantially heavy car, substantially bigger than car. And then they had to go back to the drawing board.
No.
And I think there needs, I mean, obviously you are biased to the GTR as we've just heard for the last hour and a half. But basically you look at the likes of Evos. What a car, dude.
Like I said to you,
an absolute car.
Many years ago.
Yeah.
I reckon Evo is probably the all-rounder.
Yeah.
Everything, you know,
it
4 doors.
4 doors, and it goes straight off tarmac onto loose gravel.
Yeah.
And it's got
it does everything.
It does everything.
Yeah.
I think that that would have been a great segue because I think we'll just do some rapid fire now. So outside of blank check, outside of this, what would sit next to this in the garage? FD. Wow. I think you've said that to me before, but I didn't think you were sticking to your guns that hard.
Yeah. It's something different.
Contrasting enough, do you think?
Look, you know, obviously you'd say NSX as well would be.
Of course.
But we're being the greatest car.
We're being realistic.
You know, but look, FD, I really like the idea of it and the styling of it. You know? Think about it. It looks good now.
Yeah.
Let alone in 2002 or in 2000 or in 95 or in 93.
Yeah, it would have blown your mind.
In 1993.
Yeah.
The car looked like that.
Yeah. Yeah, could you imagine?
You know, it looked that good that, you know, it's still, you know, it's unbelievable.
It's such a fine balance between, and look, it is more or less a straight team version of a Porsche. But the fact of the matter is they got it better than the Porsche. And only Japan at the height could get it right. Because an FC RX-7 goes without saying is the best balanced car in terms of design finesse and masculinity. It looks both sleek, modern, but also looks dominant, masculine, sharp, edged, like advanced, avant-garde. It looks spectacular. And it was, at the time, it was very early. Like the NSX came close in terms of design, like design styling and things like that. But I think the FC would have been, mind-blowing in terms of its design on its debut.
What can I say? Yeah, there's so many cars that are, you know, like I said before, golden age. It will never be repeated. Yeah, it was stuff that you know, you saw them racing, and then, you know, you can buy them like
win on Sunday, sell on Monday. Yeah.
It's you know, people could connect to that. Yeah, you know, people,
because they were attainable.
They were attainable, especially in that particular economy.
Correct.
This was like the pinnacle of anything.
Yeah,
it's like
they had the money, they had the cars, they had the technology,
they had everything. They had the hi-fi. They had
everything.
Absolutely
everything. The music. It would have been such a phenomenal time. I think that would have been one of the most amazing places to be at the time. And obviously there was, you know, the Wall Street boom in the 80s as well and all that sort of stuff. But like, honestly, I don't think there would have been a better place to be, because you would have been so proud, you would have been so excited about after the Second World War and all that, sort of took decades for that to come back. But then they, with the GTR itself, the GTR came and it toppled the benchmark of sports cars in terms of performance. And that would have been such a monumental moment that, yes, you've got RX-7s, NSXRs, which in their own respect, I think everybody has their own favorite. And I think that, if everybody wanted GTRs, then everybody would have them. And I think that people have their own choices in whatever they choose. But this was still, at the apex of what sports car engineering out of Japan. And now you look at it and it's like solenoids and actuators and, it's heavily dated. But at the time, Jesus, Jeremy Clarkson was talking about how it's like a PlayStation. It's so advanced, it's so intense, it's so this, it's so that. And, and that's why, because it was built to do a job and it did that job well. And now
it evolved into being that,
Yeah, and that became a hero car in many respects. And then a cult following like yourself ensued. What do you think about GTRs now, in the sense of the modern custodians of GTRs now, where they aren't being driven so much, where we see a few GTRs out in the sense of they're doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that. What do you think? How do you see that? Because there's obviously every way to look at it: glass half full, glass half empty, or not even look at the glass. But when you look at it, do you think it's good for the sense of preservation, or do you think that it's a little bit you'd like to see them used?
Oh, look, in general, I mean, driven in the sense of use the GTR as the tool that it is.
Yep.
You can race any car. You can say that about an RX-7 or
correct.
About a MX-5 or Roadster. It's like, well, you're not racing it, but it's like
not a Miata pit.
It's not. Sorry, yeah.
Not a Miata.
It's you could say that to every car, but like really, GTR's really sort of racing DNA from back in the day when it was a box and it was what's this box beating the Porsche?
Yeah.
And it was really sort of crafted in a way, not that it's a cool sports car, this and that, but it was really at some points in its life built around literally racing regulations.
Yeah.
For it to dominate, and it did, in a way that no one had seen before. That's where the legend comes. Got kept sort of going along with this brand, but you can't blame it in this current climate where they cost so much money. It's like an F40. You had an F40 LM. I mean, you take it maybe once to the track or something like that. But it was possible when 10, 15 years ago, it was possible to do that and sort of live your dream, unless you're really rich and you don't care, you can take whatever you want to the track.
Yeah.
But now, it'll be a shame not to drive it if you own one, which you would drive it to an extent, I'm sometimes guilty of that, this car's not in recent years shy of a trickle.
Yeah.
But
had a couple of trickles.
I feel content with how much I was able to enjoy it, and it's just in general. I think that it's just a shame that you won't be able to see these cars
for what they are.
For what they are, you really, you can go to your local track, and you see a 32 GTR or a 33 GTR, and there are, not to say that there are not.
Yeah.
But not like they used to be 10 years ago.
And the vast majority.
And as it's going on, as life is going on, obviously they're going to go up more and more in value, perhaps. Yeah. And it's going to be harder and harder, And with people like myself as well, like if anything ever happened to this car, I couldn't afford another one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, what can I do? I'm still going to put the 8009s on and go for another squirted sand down in due course.
Yeah.
It's just life gets in the way sometimes.
Yeah,
I've successfully brainwashed my kid into karting now. Likewise.
Yeah.
It's
it's a shame.
It's a shame not to see them, and when you do see them, it's it might be something a little bit lesser, not necessarily not cooler, but you're not seeing
Yeah.
you know, a 34 GTR
Getting sent.
getting absolutely sent,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like you used to 10
Yeah.
years ago
Yeah. Yeah.
when they were, you know, it wasn't on your conscience that hard,
Yeah.
you know. But otherwise, you know, there's a good thriving community in
Melbourne.
in Melbourne as well.
Yeah.
Everyone takes their cars out, they go
Yeah.
to meets and things
Yeah.
like that. But
Yeah.
just
That's
me
more the enjoyment.
personally,
More
it just
enjoyable
doesn't
car,
sort of align with me so much because I'm just tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just tired, kids.
Yeah.
I'm the sort of person that's gonna, you know, cruise Sunday morning,
Yeah.
take it, enjoy it. I don't need to go to the mountains anymore. I've done that. I've just got it out of my system completely.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I enjoy it. Just even idling, it's fantastic for me. It's
Yeah.
exciting, and it just
Yeah.
brings back these memories, and it's like a time capsule almost.
That's sick.
And that's how I enjoy it. But yeah, to get back to what you're saying, just a shame that you won't be able to see them.
Yeah.
Just like, you know, you won't be able to see a lot of cool cars
Yeah.
from
Well, I mean, yeah, you don't get to see
from
the
back in
likes
the
of
day.
the likes of Ferrari F40s. I mean, different volumes, different
Yeah.
caliber of car, naturally. But I think it's also to say that, you know,
Yeah.
less kids will.
I mean,
have
you'll
the
see
chance to
250 GTOs at Goodwood,
Yeah.
and that's like the only place. You're
And
not going to see anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's an exception.
Yeah.
Other than that,
Yeah. It's
you know,
not something
anything
you see
that's
every
worth
day.
a lot of money, that's, you know.
Yeah. And so, obviously, heading towards the conclusion of the discussion, you've also, interestingly, found recent love for a totally polarizing,
Yeah,
different car,
that's right.
and you've now found a new love for a different type of car. And
Yeah.
I think that
I enjoy a few
no,
things.
next time around, I think we'll leave it a secret for the time being, unless people do actually go and find you on Instagram and start following you. Which
They won't see it.
they
I've
won't
never
see it.
posted
You
anything.
never posted anything.
No
of that.
one knows except for you guys.
Perfect.
No one knows I've got one.
So in that case, we'll keep it under wraps. How good is that?
They don't know
How
I'm a
good is
gentleman.
that? That's perfect. That's amazing. So I think that, yeah, looking at the broader sense of the discussion, I think you've encapsulated everything well, and you've sent that message loud and clear. And I think people will enjoy this. I think people will enjoy having heard your story, heard your version. This won't be the last time you join us on Wheel Talk. It won't be the last time. There's going to be plenty more episodes, plenty more opportunities. I think people are just getting a little bit of a taste of what is John Olasau. You're a very complex individual. You like classical music. But you know, people will.
I like many things.
You like many things, and I think you like them with a very
As much as I love trance and hardstyle.
Correct.
It's
There's everything.
There's
everything that's involved.
and
There's A380s and all the rest of it. So there's a depth to your complexity, which I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to speak about more. But is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Anything else that you wanted to cover off?
Oh, that's just pretty comfortable with that. I just, you know, just enjoy what you've got. Just enjoy what you've got, and I guess I'll say it again now. I say it all the time, but it's really good, and I really enjoy it. The value of life can be measured by how many times your soul has been deeply stirred.
Yeah.
Soichiro Honda.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. It is a good encapsulation of how to look at what's actually important in life. And I think experience are important. I think that anything that like you said, makes you feel something from within that can't be bought.
Good or bad.
Good or bad. It defines who we are as people. So on an immensely profound outro, I think that'll probably be the most profound outro of all time. I think that's going to wrap up the episode. So thank you very much, Mr. John Olasau.
Thank you for
ladies
having
and
me.
gentlemen, John Olasau, one of
Thank
the
you for having
most
me.
amazing individuals I have been blessed to know.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode. There is going to be more. We will have him back. We will have him in an incredibly polarizing car next time around, and we'll go into it in a little bit more detail. But thank you very much for joining us for what has been a slightly longer episode. But too bad. If you made it this far, I'm sure you've enjoyed it. We will have a new one out as soon as we can. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.